Hey, Dad. It is January 29th, 2024. We are getting into an interesting year. This will be a leap year. This is an election year. This is going to be an interesting year. So we got a couple of things to talk about, but before we get started, I wanted to call a couple of things out that I got as feedback from the last one I did. One is that apparently I do this a lot, and I'm not sure why. So I'm going to try and not do that as much today, but now I've told you guys about it so you can watch and tell me how many times I did it. The other one is my speed. I tend to get super excited and I have a lot of things I want to cover, so I go pretty fast. It also means that I start to get out of breath because I'm so excited. I'm going to try not to do that as well. Last thing I want to say is that we do have a new segment in the middle, but that segment didn't go as well as we wanted. So we're going to show you a little bit of it as kind of a teaser for what that segment might be. But our filler in the middle that's normally, well, last time it was sports, but our goal is to have it be something different and fun each time. Didn't work. So we'll show you a little bit of that, but not much. That said, I've got this that I need. It's go ahead and let's get ready to go. And here we go with January 29th, 2024 Weekly Dad News. First story today is our first story last week, unfortunately. So last week we talked about the caucuses. This week we're going to talk about a primary. I didn't really want to talk more about this until we got further into the season. I think that there's a lot of votes to come. There's a lot of discussions to come. There's a lot more primary space that could be explored. But what I'm seeing from the news is that most of this has been portrayed as a horse race, especially on the Republican side. On the Democratic side, everybody's kind of going, okay, Joe Biden is the incumbent, and we're going to get behind the incumbent, and he won last time, he can win again, and we'll do 2 terms with Biden and Harris. That doesn't mean nobody else can run. As a matter of fact, in both New Hampshire and in the caucuses in Iowa, you had multiple other people running. Probably the one that most people have heard of is Dean Phillips. But in that span of other people running, there's not like a huge challenger to Biden. He's got a lot of momentum. This tends to happen, especially in the party base. In the DNC, nobody's going to go, let's get Bernie out here and see how well he does against Biden while Biden's the incumbent. They're going to stay stable. Even Bernie's going to come out and say, yeah, this is the best path forward to maintain the continuity of our current system. But one of the things that happens with this being covered as a horse race is that it's all about who's winning by a nose, who's ahead by a hair, who's the dominant favorite going into each competition. And so what we've had happen in the last week, like since we talked last, is that the dynamic of the Republican side has entirely collapsed. The Democratic side has just kind of spun along in an interesting way. So let's talk about both of those and about the votes in New Hampshire. So we had the caucuses happen. In the caucuses in Iowa, you came out with Trump for the Republicans and Biden for the Democrats. They called that almost as soon as the caucuses closed. So the votes weren't even fully tallied. They were just pretty sure that was going to be the way. They were right, and that's not a fault on them for wanting to get that news out there. But that chase of the headline, that need to be first, really covers how the press covers it. So in looking at some of this stuff in New Hampshire, when I was recording this, not all of the votes were fully in New Hampshire. They had like 99.9% reporting. They're nearly all in, but not all the votes were in. With that, they had, these numbers are so weird. They're so crazy. So going back to the caucus, on the Republican side, Trump got about 56,000 voters, DeSantis got 23,000, and Nikki Haley got 21,000. And Ramaswamy, who dropped out before that, got 8,000. So a guy who's no longer even in the race pulled in 8K in votes. After Trump conclusively grabbed Iowa, with 56,000 votes. DeSantis, who got 23,000, just dropped out. He's, cool, my campaign's done, I'm going to step back. I will say that DeSantis' campaign has been one of kind of anger. Like, I haven't seen him come forward and go, here's what I want to do, here's my hopeful vision, here's morning in America. He's pretty much come forward and said, everything's bad and I'm mad at the people that are making it bad. And we're talking about a guy who's governor of Florida, who went to really prestigious schools, who is very wealthy and will continue to be wealthy after this. I don't know why he's so mad. The stuff about the shoes was weird. He might be wearing inserts, he might not, but it was just a strange campaign to see him run. And then for him to, after losing by 33,000 votes, drop out, that's one. All he did was the caucus. All he did was Iowa. After spending months, he changed the law in Florida so he could run and keep his governorship. There was a law in Florida that said if you're going to run for national office, you have to give up your governor's seat before you can do that. And he got the legislature to change the law, so he was able to stay governor and still run for office. And then he gives up after one. So Ron drops out after a ton of money, a ton of time, a ton of vitriol that he put into the space. And that just kind of makes the primaries even less interesting, because now we're pulling with Trump as the forerunner against Nikki Haley. And then we get to New Hampshire. And New Hampshire is a voting state where they vote in the primaries. And in those primary votes, though, they have these little stories. The same as Iowa is first in the nation for its caucus, New Hampshire has in their laws that they have to be first in the nation for an election primary. Like, it's in the state laws. The problem is the state doesn't control the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. It just controls the Secretary of State and when those elections take place, that the state will help administer them, which makes it a mess when the Democratic National Convention got together and said, hey, we're going to change the order of the primaries to try and better reflect the electorate. Iowa doesn't look like most of America. New Hampshire doesn't look like most of America. A lot of the early voting states and the people that voted in them don't look like America. They look like Iowa and they look like New Hampshire, which are parts of America. But it's like if in the European Union you said, cool, we're going to let Germany and France vote first. So odds are Spain and Italy, your votes won't matter because we'll already have decided based on what Germany and Italy said. That's kind of the vibe. So think about that, right? So the Democratic and the Republican committees set their schedules for when the votes happen, and based on how they set their schedules, this whole thing can wash out in different ways depending on where you can build early support, momentum, and get press about the horse race. So there's a little teeny village that votes, and it votes at midnight for New Hampshire's first election, and there were 6 votes. 6 votes turned in, they vote at midnight, they count them, and Nikki Haley got all 6 votes, and everybody's like, yay, Nikki Haley has momentum. She doesn't have momentum. It is 6 votes. It's a gimmick, it's a parlor trick, it's fun, but we shouldn't be doing parlor tricks with our elections. We should be doing gimmicks with our elections. You should vote and get a sticker and be done. So they went through and they had the New Hampshire election, and it went, DeSantis is out now, so all those voters are trying to figure out where to put their votes. And what ended up happening is that Trump drops in and gets 174,948 votes, so 54%. Nikki Haley gets 139,000. DeSantis, since he's dropped out, gets 2,000. Ramaswamy, who we're talking about, gets 1/10 of his votes in Iowa. He's now at 783. You have 1,200 write-ins, and then you have Chris Christie with 1,400, and he's not running anymore either. So there are all these people on the ballot that aren't even engaging in the process anymore. So Trump comes out ahead, and let's cover the Democratic side real quick. So total number of votes on the Republican side is well over 300,000 people in New Hampshire. Compare that with the earlier votes on the caucus results in Iowa. There were over 100,000 on the Republican side, and then a bunch on the Democrat side too. But if you compare the numbers in the Republican side and the Democratic side in New Hampshire, the total number of votes cast in New Hampshire were about 100,000 plus for the Democrats and 300,000 plus for Republicans. The state's not split like that. It's not a 3/4 Republican state. But what happened is all the Democrats look at this and go, meh, Biden's our nominee. New Hampshire doesn't even, it's early. It's just a couple of delegates. And they let it go because there's no narrative to it. There's no story. There's no inspiration. There's no sense of civic duty. And the kicker is Biden wasn't on the ballot and New Hampshire can't award any Democratic delegates. Remember earlier how I was saying the Democratic National Committee kind of rearranged their order? They rearranged their order, but because New Hampshire has the law that says we vote first, they went ahead and had the Democratic primary anyway. And the DNC said, you can have it, but you're not electing delegates. It's just a popularity contest. And Biden said, yeah, you can't go against the DNC, so I'm not going to put my name on the ballot. But what happened anyway is that Biden got written in. So those 100,000 votes were repressed because they aren't getting awarded any delegates, and Biden's not on the ballot. Here's the results though. Biden got 65,000 votes, and the closest competitor, Dean Phillips, got 22,900 votes. So Biden won without being on the ballot, but his win doesn't mean anything because there's no delegates to award. And there were 20,000 write-ins that were still unprocessed as of the time I'm putting this out. So the whole thing's a mess. Why are we talking about New Hampshire? Going, oh, Biden won conclusively, and it was a write-in. The whole thing is not characteristic of what an election should be. And on the Republican side, once DeSantis dropped out, a whole bunch of his votes went to Haley. And so she jumped up, and so now Haley's staying in the race. So that's the frou-frou around the votes themselves. On the backside of that, you've got these election results that are coming out, and the push on the Republican side is Nikki Haley should drop out. She should just drop out at this point. We don't know why she's even in this anymore, which doesn't make any sense because all we've had is Iowa and New Hampshire, a caucus state and a voting state. And those two sets of votes, there's less than 1 million votes that have been put in on both sides. When you consider that over 150 million votes are going to be cast in the general election, why should we let less than 1% of people decide who the candidates are going to be on either side? That's sloppy. And not only do we have that voting process hit, but then everybody comes out and starts to jump in and push on the media narrative. So you've got Axios had an article and they said, I'm looking at the map and the path going forward and I don't see it for Nikki Haley. That was a quote from Ronna McDaniel. She previously said the RNC would stay neutral. She did not. She came out saying Nikki should drop. Trump is ramping up his calls on Tuesday for Haley to drop out. He had Tim Scott standing behind him. And Tim Scott is one of the people that appointed Nikki Haley to her seat. And so he's switched. The nice part, though, is that Nikki Haley is not going to drop out. She actually countered with what I think is a great pull quote. Haley came in with 43%. Trump had 54% in New Hampshire. And prior to that, in Iowa, the showing wasn't great for her. But after all this crap, and Donald Trump even said, hey, if you vote or support Nikki Haley, we don't want you as part of the Make America Great Again Republican Party. Just get out of here. So Nikki Haley started selling merch, and she said, New Hampshire is the first in the nation. It is not the last in the nation, which I'll give her kudos for that clapback. That was pretty solid, because we should extend this and keep going. We've got all kinds of mess because of the way it's framed in the media and the chase for sound bites. We've also got all kinds of mess because of the way that it's being engaged with right now, and it's super frustrating. But what I will say is that we agreed to all of these rules before this all started. But I think a lot of the rules are archaic and unknown. So one of the reasons I like talking about this and getting it to you, Dad, is because even though there's not much that we can do, if we keep talking about it, we keep being mad about it, Maybe there's a point at which we change the rules to the game that we're playing. This is what I call my Monopoly philosophy. I don't like playing Monopoly, but if we play Monopoly, I'm gonna play Monopoly so aggressively and try and win so viciously, taking advantage of every space in the rules, whatever house rules we're playing with. So when we come out the other side, you don't want to play Monopoly anymore. And next time we can play a different game. We can play Settlers of Catan, or we can play Seafall. Excellent game. Seafall is an excellent game. Monopoly is rough though. It's built to show off how bad capitalism is. And people play it for fun and don't realize that there's an object lesson. And instead they're playing Florida-opoly or Disney-opoly, which are crazy that there's tie-ins to all that. But my point is that currently we've set these rules. The DNC sets them, the RNC sets them, and then the states set the rules for who can vote, when they can vote, if there's how they can register, and all those things are different all over the country. We need to rationalize this system and make it so that it's less subjective to the momentum, the whims of news media, and the way things are being covered, and more reflective of how the candidates' policies will do beneficial things for us. There's something there that I really want to happen. I don't know how to make it happen. I don't know how to get that system going. But for now, while we're playing Monopoly, all I'm gonna do is say, cool, this is the way the rules are. I don't like them, but we agreed to play by them. So when we vote and when we go vote, I'll be there. I'm gonna cast my vote and I'm gonna play inside of the system. And I'm trying to figure out a way to get you guys to do it too. Where mom and dad, when you go and you vote, or when you talk to your friends about voting, we start talking about these things and go, this is insane. Did you know we're doing this? The answer is most people don't. So we'll keep trying to get it out there, fix that. Before we get to our second story, we are going to take a quick moment and look at our new segment that we tried to film. Unfortunately, that segment did not succeed. A couple of reasons. I was about halfway through it and I Googled what I was doing and found out it was a bad idea. So here's a couple of quick clips from, all I'm going to show you is safety gear and mistakes, and then we'll just leave it at that and never again discuss the attempt of the first time. We'll just leave it. Here's that. And the thing, I got protective gear for this. So I have my coveralls that I got from Tractor Supply Company. So go there, they're awesome, like $45. So let's get these off of here. This is gonna keep grease and stuff off of me, dirt, paint, all that jazz. So they'll be super useful for me when I'm doing other stuff, as well as when I'm doing things like today. We've also got a cool pair of protective goggles for my eyeballs. This isn't too dangerous today, but there's always a possibility something might pop, blow up, explode. It's a small one, but it's there. We're gonna hook it up on this side. That's in there. We're gonna hook, see? This is why we wear safety gear. So that's that. I'm here, I'm okay, I'm fine. Mom, don't worry, I'm good. Dad, if you were here, you would have been breaking stuff with me, so appreciate it. For our second story, we're gonna go into something kind of lighter, just kind of break the mood off of all this election stuff, and pivot to all that's going on in the streaming services and Netflix. So Netflix reported its full year and Q4 earnings, and in that, they did phenomenally well. One of the things that they've done very well at is they have a new ad-supported tier. So it's much cheaper than any of the traditional tiers. It allows them to sell advertising. This is something we've seen across a lot of the streaming services. Pandora has one like this. Spotify has one like this. There's been this for Hulu for a long time. YouTube is an entirely ad-supported model. I am not ad-supported yet, but you may have seen ads already, because anything that's put up is an opportunity for YouTube to monetize. The bit that they also dropped is that their cheapest subscription package is no longer going to be available. So now there's going to be this ad-supported tier, which is cheap, but you got to watch ads. But if you want to jump that to no ads, instead of being a slight increase, it's a much bigger increase. I'll put the numbers here so you can see them. I don't have them off the top of my head. That's just me being lazy. I don't remember what I pay for Netflix, and odds are neither do you. It's probably in there and you pay it, And once in a while you get an email that says, it's going up $1, it's going up $2. And you go, And honestly, it's not a bad deal. It's really good. The problem is that there's all these different ones, right? So if you want to watch all the stuff, you've got to be on Amazon and Apple TV and Hulu and Disney Plus and Netflix. It's a lot. And each one of those has their own stuff. We talked a little about this with the Amazon streaming NFL playoff games. But in this case, we're running into a space where not only are we not able to find what we want to watch, but if we do find it, it may be surrounded by ads. When they first started deploying technology that tracked you and knew who you were, it was like you'd sit at home and you'd be, here's what I'm watching, here's what time it is, here's who I am, and you send it in, right? Nielsen ratings. The Nielsen ratings had these share systems, and they take that and they go to advertisers and they say, this show attracts these demographics, families watch it together. So that really governed how they made commercials. They'd make commercials that would appeal to different people that were watching the show, and everybody else would just have to sit there through the commercial and wait until there was something that engaged them, because odds are when you're 7, you're not too worried about car commercials. You're not going to buy a car for a while. Odds are when you're 45, you don't care about toy commercials. Odds are if you're a boy, you don't care much about tampon commercials. And that split and where you have these desires came through, I did the thing. Ignore the thing. So that split in desires of what you want to watch and what you want to engage with, there was this promise when we started going digital. It wasn't overt, but it was implied. And that was that they'd be able to super customize commercials and deliver just right to the advertiser exactly who they wanted. That hasn't come to pass. I've managed advertising campaigns on Facebook, Google Ads, YouTube. I've managed them in a couple of different spaces. But what I've noticed is that when you're looking for leads and you're trying to get people in to buy your product, to engage with your website, to click on it and go buy, even if it's just off of Amazon, you're still flooding the zone. You're still not hyper-focused. The ability to say, I only want to sell to somebody who's 20 to 40, is not going to buy a car for the next 2 years, really likes Lego, is going to spend $300 in the next 3 months, is male, is traditional values male. Like that stuff is happening on the side. It's not happening direct. So when you look at stuff like Alex Jones or the MyPillow guy and their networks, Tucker Carlson, stuff on X, the reason you see advertisers hop on and hop off is because of the underlying social stuff that's happening on there, which is a proxy for who's watching and who you can sell to on there. But this utopia hasn't happened. And even worse, I watch stuff on streaming services with ads, and I get the same ad. I keep seeing ads for Geico. I keep seeing ads for Jeeps. I do see ads for feminine products, and I see ads for things I'm not gonna purchase. And there's no way for me as an individual to say, I'm already signed up, Geico. Get your gecko out of here. There's no way for me to sign up and say, I just bought a new car and I'm not even thinking about a new car. This is the first and only new car I've bought, so I'm not a target for you. I'm not a target for the ads for the BMW iONIQ Q72463. I'm not gonna get that car. I want somewhere where I can set preference and say, here's all the ads I wanna see. This is where my eyeballs should go. And not only has that not been delivered, but things that I wanna watch that I used to be able to go to Walmart and pick out of the DVD bin, or I used to be able to go to Blockbuster, Hollywood Video, even Netflix used to have them on DVD for me to rent and watch and send back. As we get things that have no physical media, there's no DVD, there's no VHS tape, there's no Laserdisc. There are things that are going away. They're being taken out of streaming catalogs, eliminating anywhere to watch them. And when that happens, it gets frustrating because I feel like we're missing part of our culture that's just kind of fading out. Go try and find any of the 80s B-movie action films, and odds are you can find them in libraries on VHS at the Goodwill. but finding them streaming is harder and harder. Part of this is complications in the rights system, which is another thing we'll talk about later. But part of it is that people that are streaming it go, well, if I have to pay somebody to stream it and I don't get enough new subscribers off of this thing, then why am I going to stream it? Why am I going to put it out there? So you get stuff that kind of gets buried. I was super excited when Disney Plus came out. I'm like, cool, there's one place to get all the neat old stuff from Disney that's harder and harder to find. Stuff that was a part of my childhood and really was, exciting for me to watch. Apple Dumpling Gang, Gus the field goal kicking mule, Kurt Russell and the computer who wore tennis shoes. I enjoyed those and I wanted to watch them again. Some of them are available, some of them are not. Mickey Mouse Club, some of them are available, some of them are not. And as they continue to fall off and get older and just go into the ether, how do we watch these things? Disney Plus isn't helping. Disney Plus is not ad supported, which is great, so you pay and you get it, but they do own a huge portion of Hulu. And so the Hulu model with its ads and its continually weird freak out on Chrome, Hulu sits there and still serves ads, and you have to buy out of those tiers, and those ads are not great. So as Disney moved in there, I went, yay, there's all these things I want to watch. Then I wasn't able to watch them. Disney, don't be a coward. Let me watch The Watcher in the Woods, the super old one with Bette Davis, not the one with there was a remake for some reason. I don't know why there's a remake of that movie. The original is one of the scariest things I've ever seen. Chilled me to my core. Let me watch that. Something Wicked This Way Comes. I can watch that, but you know where I have to look? I have to look on Apple TV. Apple TV has Something Wicked This Way Comes. Why is that not on Disney? I'm guessing that the rights are over there and they'll eventually come back. But this isn't the promise that you promised us. Disney, put Song of the South on Disney Plus. Let people see what it was. Heck, that's one that you don't want ads around anyway. It's really strange to watch this go back and forth and go towards this ad-supported model. Then you're paying for it, but you're streaming. And now you're both paying for it and ads. Netflix ad tier, you pay for it and you watch ads. Hulu, there's an ad tier. You pay for it and you watch ads. This is like the NFL with streaming on Amazon. You pay for it and you're watching ads. They're getting you coming and going. So my last call is for Disney. Honestly, release Song of the South. Let us see how wacky that thing was. Because it's one of those perfectly awful old movies where it's enjoyable, and I remember enjoying it as a child, but watching it with more wide open eyes, I'm like, holy crap, this is really pushing a narrative. You can watch it. So you can't buy a DVD, you cannot buy the VHS, it's extremely difficult to find. It's not on Disney Plus, it's not on any of the streamers, but you can watch it. You can watch it at the Internet Archive. I'll put the link in the description. But at the Internet Archive, they have the complete Song of the South. I went back and I watched it, I was blown away. I'm like, oh my God, I don't remember this much live action. It's 2-to-1. 2/3 of the movie is people walking around and talking in the South during Reconstruction, and slaves being happy that they're still working, even though they're no longer slaves. It's very unbalanced. Let's 2 more things and then we'll be done with this. But the guy that wrote it was, his last name was Raymond. And he wrote this, and he'd never written a script before, and he never wrote a script after. He wrote this script, and he had a whole bunch of super, and it's cultural, it was product of the times, but super like racist stuff in there. And so they hired a African-American consultant. His last name was Muse. And Muse came in and he said, you should change this and you should change this and here's some notes. And Raymond refused and Muse quit. And they went, okay, well, let's finish the script, give it to us. Okay, yeah, this needs a lot of work. So they hired a guy named Raph. Raph was a Jewish man. He was super excited because he's like, okay, I can't really mess with the live action stuff. That's done. Raymond's super excited about it. But what I can do is make a lot of the stuff around Brer Rabbit, Brer Fox, and Brer Bear a parable for the slave experience. And so Brer Rabbit was supposed to be the slave, and then Brer Fox and Brer Bear are ignorant white people who don't understand the slave's plight. That was what he was going for. That's what Raph was doing. And he worked on it for about 6-7 weeks, and then he kept pushing on Raymond, and Raymond kept pushing back to the point where they moved Raph off the project. They moved the Jewish man who had these ideas off the project. So it flowed through, it came out, and I'm gonna leave you with this. The cultural historian Jason Spurb, talking about the film, said it was one of Hollywood's most resiliently offensive racist texts. Disney Plus, come on. Put it on there. You can watch it on the Internet Archive, but I want Disney to grab and hold on to everything. If they're gonna grab and hold on to everything, then do it. They just lost the mouse, the early mouse, Steamboat Willie, public domain. Song of the South is not yet in the public domain, but man, it's gonna be a weird time when it is. Well, that's our show for today. I'm hoping I'm not talking about elections next week. I might be, I might not be. We'll fix that little piece in the middle so there's something there to lighten the mood between the news bits. And honestly, Song of the South, release it and Watch Her in the Woods. Man, come on. Watch Her in the Woods is so great. Go look it up. Watch the trailer. It is one of the spookiest things I saw, and I saw it when I was a child, which should not have probably happened. I'm pretty sure it was on the Disney Channel then. Disney. Watch Her in the Woods. That's our show tonight. Love you, Dad. Love you, Mom. Bye.